Hey everybody, my name is Taha Shashtari. In this video I'm gonna show you how to hide the navbar when you scroll down and to make it reappear when you scroll up. So let's start by adding a navbar to the page. So let's add some title here. Now let's add some styling to the page to make it look better. So in style, let's for example add a background to the nav. Let's add some dark blue background here. Let's change the text color to white. Let's change the font family to something better. Let's use the system UI. And also let's add some padding to the navbar. Okay, so now you can see we have some extra margin around the navbar, which is the default margin that the body element has. So we can just remove it by setting margin to 0 on the body element. Now the next step, we need to add some fake content to the page so we make the page scrollable. So let's do that in a content div, and let's add a list of paragraphs with some lorem ipsum text. So here's paragraph lorem ipsum. Let's copy that multiple times so we fill the page. Let's add some margin around each of the paragraphs so we add more space so we make the page more scrollable. So in the styling, let's just add some margin. Let's, for example, add 100 pixels vertically and 50 pixels horizontally. So now you can see we can now scroll the page. Now the next thing we need to do is to make the navbar sticky, and we can do that by setting the position to fixed. So let's do that in the styling here. So let's say position fixed. Let's add some z index to 10. Let's set the top and left to 0, and let's set a full width to it. Now you can see now when we scroll down, the navbar is sticky. Now the next step is to detect the scroll direction. So we need to know whether the user is scrolling down or up, and based on that we hide or show the navbar. So in JavaScript, let's add a script here. Let's listen to the scroll event on the window object. So if we say add event listener, scroll. So you can see how the scroll event works by logging the scroll text here. So now if we start scrolling, you can see now we are logging the scroll text in the console window. Now we need to detect the scroll direction, and we can do that by comparing the previous scroll position to the current one. So that means we need to store the previous one in a variable outside the event listener. So let's call it, for example, last scroll y, and let's give it as the 0 value, because that's usually the initial one because the user is at the very top. Now to get the current scroll position, we just need to use the window.scroll y. So let's say current scroll y equals window.scroll y. Now let's compare the two values in an if statement. So let's say if the current scroll y is bigger than last scroll y, then that means we are scrolling down. So let's say scroll down. Otherwise, we are scrolling up. But before we test that, we need to set the previous value as the current one. So we first do the checks, and then we set the last scroll to the current one. So all we have to do is just to say last scroll y equals current scroll y. Now let's test that in the browser. If I scroll down, it says scroll down. But if I scroll up, it says scroll up. Okay, so now the next step is we need to show the navbar based on the scroll direction. And we can simply do that by adding a class to the navbar when the user is scrolling down, and that class would hide the navbar. So maybe we can call that class hidden. Now that class would move the navbar up the same amount as its height, and we can do that using transforms translate y. So let's do transform. Now let's give it a translate y negative 100 pixels, which means the same amount as its height. So all we have to do is just to set the hidden class on the nav element when the user is scrolling down. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to get a reference to the nav element. So let's say navbar document.query selector and get the nav element. Now we know that the user is scrolling down in this section, so we have just to say navbar.classlist.add hidden. So that will add the hidden class to the navbar element. And let's remove that class when the user is scrolling up. So all we have to do is the same thing. Let's copy and paste this and just change this to remove. So let's test this. Now we scroll down, so it's hidden. We scroll up, now it reappears. Now the last thing we need to do is to add animation to the navbar when it shows and hide. So all we have to do is to add some transition to the nav element for the transform property. So we say transition, let's give it 2.5 seconds, and let's use the ease animation, and it will just animate the transform property. Let's test this now. We scroll down, it hides with some animation, scroll up, it reappears. Yeah, so that works, cool. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any question, please leave them in the comments section. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.